There is an appointment on your calendar right now that you didn't make. You cannot cancel it, you can't reschedule it, and you certainly cannot negotiate the time, the place, or the circumstances. Every single human being who has ever lived, prophets, kings, scholars, and everyday people who just thought they had more time, has had to face this undeniable, inescapable reality. Death is literally the one absolute certainty we all share. It was decreed before you were even born. But what exactly happens the moment after you close your eyes for the last time? Welcome to this explainer. Okay, let's dive right into this. Today, we're going to neutrally map out a highly detailed, honestly fascinating framework described in Islamic theology, the realm that exists precisely between death and resurrection. It's this intermediate state of existence where billions of souls are described to currently reside. It's known as Al-Barzakh, the world between worlds. We're going to explore exactly what the source material said about this journey, going step by step.
To really grasp the finality of this realm, we have to look at this poignant quote from the Quran, Surah Al-Mu'minun. Until, when death comes to one of them, he says, "My Lord, send me back." No, it is only a word he is saying, and behind them is a barrier until the day they are resurrected. This verse powerfully emphasizes the absolute permanence of crossing over. When a soul reaches that threshold and desperately cries out to return to earth to do good, the answer is just no. The door to life closes forever, and that desire to go back is entirely futile. Part 1. Crossing the barrier.
We're about to take a chronological journey into an invisible dimension. The Islamic sources outline this as a real, currently existing realm that runs right alongside our own. It's totally inaccessible to our scientific instruments, but profoundly real for the souls experiencing it right now. It's a stage-by-stage process that kicks off the exact fraction of a second that life ends. But first, let's define exactly what we're talking about here. The Arabic term Al-Barzakh linguistically means a barrier, or a partition between two things. It's actually really fascinating because the Quran uses this exact term in a few different ways. In one verse, it describes the physical divine barrier between two oceans that meet side by side but don't mix. And then it's used to describe that uncrossable threshold separating the living world from the afterlife. So it's a space that both separates and connects. And this brilliantly illustrates the path we will follow today. This is the macro journey of the soul according to Islamic texts. From the exact moment of death, to a brief ascent into the heavens, a rapid return to the earth, a profound period of questioning, and finally, the waiting period in the grave. Every single soul, according to this tradition, follows this exact trajectory.
Part 2. The soul's extraction.
You know, the physical signs of a deathbed are something many of us have sadly witnessed. The labored breathing, the final stillness. But the sources describe a highly intense, simultaneous spiritual drama unfolding right there in the room, beginning the exact second the soul moves upward and reaches the throat. That's considered the absolute point of no return. The angel of death is entrusted with the task, but he doesn't show up alone. For believer, angels of mercy arrive with bright white faces carrying perfumed shrouds straight from paradise. The dying person sees them and immediately calms. But for a disbeliever, angels of punishment appear with dark faces and coarse garments from the fire, inciting sheer terror. The texts explain that the spiritual reality diverges instantly, right here, based entirely on the choices that dying person made during their life. And this massive dichotomy extends right down to the visceral, subjective experience of the soul actually leaving the physical body. For the believer, the extraction is a gentle release. The Prophet Muhammad described it as happening as smoothly as water flowing from a pitcher. The body just willingly lets go. But for the disbeliever, it is a terrifying, reluctant tearing. The Islamic tradition vividly describes it like iron skewers being dragged through wet wool. The soul is literally trying to flee back into the body to hide, but it's forcefully extracted. Immediately after this, the soul, now wrapped in its respective shroud, makes a very brief ascent up through the heavens. And again, the paths severely split. The believing soul is warmly welcomed through the heavenly gates, addressed by the absolute best names they were known by on earth, and officially recorded in Ilyin, which is the highest celestial register. Conversely, the disbelieving soul is outright rejected at the gates. They're addressed by their worst names, recorded in Sijin, the lowest register, and rapidly cast back down to earth.
Part 3. The 3 questions.
At this point, the narrative moves into the grave itself. The soul descends and is reconnected to the body. Now, scholars emphatically note here, this isn't some physical resurrection like zombie movies, it's a unique, non-physical connection suitable for this brand new Barzakh dimension. Here, the person faces an intense interrogation by two imposing, dark-complexioned angels named Munkar and Nakir. Their voices are described as sounding like rolling thunder. They immediately demand an answer to three specific questions that literally dictate everything that follows. The first stern question, echoing in the darkness of the grave, is simply, "Who is your Lord?"
Then comes the second question, direct, unyielding. What is your religion? And finally, the third question. Gesturing to the Prophet Muhammad, the terrifying angels ask, "Who is this man?" So, the crucial point is how these answers are actually produced. You can't fake this. You absolutely cannot cram for this interrogation while you're lying in the grave. The believer answers firmly and automatically with the truth. My Lord is Allah, my religion is Islam. But the disbeliever stammers in absolute confusion, saying, I do not know, I heard people saying something and repeated it. According to the texts, these answers aren't formed in the grave at all. They are the automatic, natural reflections of exactly how that person lived their daily life on earth. Part 4. The World of Waiting. We've now entered the longest phase of Al-Barzakh, and it's absolutely crucial to understand that Islamic theology does not view this waiting period as some sort of stagnant, empty limbo or unconscious void. Instead, it's a deeply active, completely lived experience that varies drastically depending on how you did on those three questions. The number 70 here is incredibly significant. For the believer who answered firmly and correctly, the physical constraints of the dirt entirely vanish. The texts state their grave miraculously expands 70 cubits in every single direction. It transforms into this vast, luminous, spacious environment that entirely defies our earthly understanding of physics, soil, and burial. This creates an ultimate dichotomy of waiting. On one side, the grave becomes a literal garden from paradise. The believer experiences a peaceful sleep, they smell the beautiful fragrance of heaven, and they're visited by a handsome companion, which the texts identify as the living, breathing personification of their good earthly deeds. It's beautiful. On the other side, for the disbeliever, the grave becomes a pit. It involves horrific, rib-interlocking compression, the continuous heat of hellfire, and an incredibly ugly companion representing their evil deeds. Now, just to be thorough, I should neutrally note here that Islamic scholars clarify this punishment isn't always permanent for everyone. For instance, a sinful Muslim's punishment can sometimes be lightened through the prayers, charity, and interventions of the living people they left behind on earth. Part 5. Time and Perspective. Now, what's really interesting about this is how long a soul actually stays in this intermediate state. We're talking about profound time dilation here. The subjective duration of waiting functions completely differently in this intermediate realm than it does here on Earth. The texts outline this mind-bending relativity of time. Listen to this Quranic exchange from Surah Al-Mu'minun. He will say, "How many years did you remain on Earth?" They will say, "We remained a day or part of a day." Even though souls have been waiting in Al-Barzakh for thousands, maybe millions of earthly years, for the comfortable believer, this vast span of time will feel incredibly short. The texts describe it feeling like just a brief, peaceful afternoon nap. In fact, they viewed this earthly life as just the morning, Al-Barzakh as the afternoon, and the afterlife as an eternity. Part 6. Preparing for the journey. Let's move to and see how this builds into our daily lives. Okay, so we've covered some incredibly lofty, detailed theological concepts today. But the source material is fundamentally designed to be practical. It's meant to shift your perspective and your behavior right now. So how does one actually prepare for this inevitable journey? Well, first, the texts outline what is called husnul khatima, or a good ending. There are several merciful indicators that a person is having a good death. Having the declaration of faith, the shahada, on their lips, perspiration on the forehead, dying on a Friday, smiling as the angels arrive, and leaving behind a genuinely positive testimony from their community. But the texts heavily clarify, these aren't just guaranteed checkpoints you can hack at the last minute. Rather, they are the natural, visible consequences of a lifetime of faithful submission and good character. To actively prepare and protect oneself in the grave, the source material prescribes 5 exact, actionable steps that anyone can start doing today. 1. Perfect your daily prayers. Treat them as actual rehearsals for standing before your Creator. 2. Regularly recite the Quran, specifically Surah Al-Mulk.
This specific chapter is uniquely said to actually argue on your behalf and protect you in the grave. 3. Increase your remembrance of God and frequently remember death itself to keep your earthly priorities straight. 4. Settle your debts and interpersonal affairs. Do not take unresolved financial or moral wrongs into the next realm with you. And 5. Make regular repentance, literally taking account of your actions every single night before you go to sleep. Ultimately, this explainer strips away all of our worldly distractions to present one core reality derived from these ancient texts. The grave is waiting. Every single breath brings us closer to that inescapable appointment we discussed at the very beginning. The theological framework we've explored today isn't meant to be mere abstract philosophy. It's an urgent call to action. The choice between a luminous garden and a dark, compressed pit, according to these sources, is still entirely in your hands right now. So, I leave you with this final, provocative question to carry with you. What companion are you building today?